To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.
That is from Walt Disney, the man himself, July 17th, 1955, at the introduction, the grand opening of Disneyland Park, as we get you set for another exciting adventure here on the DisneyVerse Podcast. My name is Michael. Thank you very much for joining us here today. We have our usual suspects, plus a newbie here. We're going to take good care of him. Don't worry about that. We'll introduce him in just a quick moment here. Let's say hello to Vicky and Trish. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hey there.
Howdy.
What's going on in this 100 million degree weather we're having out here?
Not much.
Yes.
Work and more work.
You sound exhausted. I'm concerned.
Wish I was in Disneyland, even if it was a million degrees. It's better to be there.
That's true, especially with a churro or a Dole Whip. A Dole Whip.
A double Dole Whip.
Double Dole Whip. We brought someone along here. Let's say hello to our newest, I guess, cast member. Garrett, wouldn't you say you're a cast member now, or are you a new co-host of the show now, or what are you exactly?
I will gladly take cast member. It's kind of a title that I've always wanted myself, so I will be the honorary cast member here. But thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining on. Garrett is new to the show. He's a friend of Trish's. So, Garrett, thank you very much for being a part of the DisneyVerse Podcast family. We're definitely going to have a lot of fun. We might break some rules and get drunk at the same time. So, either way, we're going to have a lot of fun. The opening, obviously, that was Walt Disney from July 17, 1955. That is the focus of today's episode, is about Disneyland's birthday. Disneyland just recently celebrated their birthday. 63 years, ladies and Garrett. It has been a long, winding road. We're going to take a look back on a little bit, and we've talked about this when we were out in the Walt Disney Museum, but we'll talk a little bit more about kind of Disneyland's upbringing, how it came to be, how did it happen, and how that fight happened. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of moments. Of course, folks, just a quick reminder, we do have your general social media links. Our Facebook page is always up and running, facebook.com/DisneyVerse. Twitter also available at DisneyVersePod. And, of course, if you would like to be on the show, if you have any ideas or questions, hit us up via email, DisneyVersePodcast@gmail.com. Garrett, I want to start with you. So talk to us a little bit about your love of Disney and Disney parks and anything that would be the Magic Kingdom itself.
Yeah, of course. Well, I grew up in a Disney family. Just everything Disney. It's just a whole love of Disney throughout my entire family. My parents have a picture of Mickey Mouse above the fireplace where people normally put like family photos or like Jesus or someone like that. They have Mickey Mouse.
So you worship a mouse. Okay, that's cool.
Absolutely, literally and figuratively. So it's like I would say that even going to Disneyland was kind of like church for us, or the closest thing we got. So
that's right.
And we would go, starting from the point probably when I was like 3 or so, we would go once every year or two, and it's just kind of one of those places that's always been there for me. I've always loved it, and as I've been able to grow up and kind of experience it as an adult, you get to appreciate the finer things about it, not just like, oh, there's rides everywhere, but you get to see like the rich history involved and the secrets everywhere and everything like that. So it's always been something that never got boring, just because I feel like there's always something new to learn and everything. And I've always been a fan of the movies and the shows, and now that Marvel and Star Wars is a part of it all, I get to replenish that love a little bit here and there, but it all comes back to the park for me. Disneyland is really my favorite thing and place in this entire world. So
well, and that's the thing for me too. And I think Disneyland's like church for me too, except giving 10%. I knew me give like 60% of my pay, but anyway. So that's how it goes. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it is for me. I know Vicky and Trish, we kind of feel the same passion. I know Terry as well, and Rain and Michelle. We all have a love of Disney. We all have a love of everything that's from Disney, from the cartoons, from the TV series, which, honestly, you can find a lot of these kind of clips and shows on YouTube. Netflix has some things on there as well. Hulu's got some stuff as well, some of the movies and things like that. So, I mean, Disney's always been something there for everybody. And you always have a memory as far as where you were when you gone to the park. Even if you haven't gone to the park, you still remember, when you got your first Disney shirt, or when you got your first Disney outfit for Halloween or something like that. I know I still do. Absolutely. So obviously, we kind of talked briefly. I want to mention one quick little nugget in news, and that is the fact that Disney is going to own Fox. It is a done deal. It's now official. Comcast has just announced within the last few days that they are going to go ahead and pull out of the Disney merger, which means Disney is all but now going to be the owners of Fox television networks. There's still some little details that need to be had in regards to that, mainly the sports packages, but for all intents and purposes, this is a done deal, and you're going to be looking to have some changes starting probably early next year. They're going to wait till you get everything done. Trish, this is kind of what we talked about on a previous episode. Is this something that ultimately you thought at the end of the day this was going to happen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Once Disney has its sights on something, it's very rare that they don't get it. And, well, now Deadpool's going to be a princess. Yay.
Woo. Yeah.
Deadpool will be a Disney princess. So Marge Simpson will be a Disney princess. Deadpool will be a Disney prince.
No, he's got to be a princess.
Well, yeah,
he's going to be riding that unicorn. I want him a princess.
They better, I'll tell you what, this much. They better put some Disney references in Deadpool 3. If they put something in there, I will absolutely love it. Something like how we were just purchased by Disney or something like that. I think they need to have that, since they put Wolverine in the first two. And of course, you're going to be looking at more than likely the crossover between Avengers and X-Men. That's probably one of those things too. I know a lot of people are going to be very, very excited about that. Vicky, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's a little heady, because when we talked about it last, there was still, they got to take some parts of it and give it off to someone, and Comcast was going to do it. It makes me wonder. It's a done deal, but now they're not able to complete the things they promised to make it a done deal. I don't know. From a business standpoint, it makes me a little hedgy. And I am still concerned that Disney is going to actually be, I know, God forbid I say this, too big.
Well, Disney will disagree with you. I'm getting a memo from the Disney Corporation.
He's already sent you the telegram.
I believe, in the words of Darth Vader, I find your lack of faith disturbing. So, nevertheless, yeah, I mean, that is a concern, too. I mean, with any kind of merger, I know that there's some issues with the AT&T Time Warner merger that was passed, but now there's some regulations that could cause that to happen. So that currently is in limbo as well. But yeah, this is, it's ultimately something that Disney's going to get. The question is, what's the real intention? Obviously, we'll never know that. I have a feeling it's part of the movies. Garrett, what are your thoughts about this whole Disney merger? Since this is your first time, what do you think about Disney and Fox becoming a married couple here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm probably the biggest Marvel fan out of any of my friends, so just the thought of, like, the X-Men or Fantastic Four or any of them showing up in the movies eventually, I'm a little disappointed that we might not get to see them, with Iron Man or any of the people who are there now, because who knows what's going to happen to them. But that's kind of an exciting thought to me. Also, from a park standpoint, I'm glad that Disney will own Avatar, so that will be officially Disney instead of just like, what the heck is Avatar doing in Disney World? But
right,
yeah, it's exciting. It's always exciting to see Disney grow and expand and do its thing. Whether or not it'll be too big is something I haven't really considered, but it'll be interesting to see like what they do with everything that they're about to acquire.
Yeah, well, and that's what they're going to have happen too. Now, obviously, with some of the attractions that are at different theme parks, big ones are Universal. I don't think you're going to be seeing Homer Simpson or Marge Simpson or any of the Simpsons characters, or Harry Potter or any of those type of things switch on over to a Disney park anytime soon. I know Harry Potter is not owned by Universal, or it's not owned by Fox. It's owned, I believe, by Universal. But the fact of the matter is that I think there's certain licensing that Universal still will have some sort of control over. For that, but the bottom line is you expect a Disney Homer Simpson episode in the near future. That's probably something that would be pretty funny. So, also, yes,
I would think that there's a bigger possibility that Wolverine could come back, because Disney has very deep pockets in which they can tempt Hugh Jackman to come back.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think, there was always that aspect of, could Wolverine maybe show up one more time? And I think that really kind of sped up, especially with Deadpool making fun of him and everything. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it would be very, very interesting. I think Disney, like you guys said, they have a lot of deep pockets, and if they want something, they're going to get it. So, we'll see about what happens with that. But Disney additional news came out. In fact, today, Monday, Disney has revealed the Mickey Mouse birthday portrait. Now, obviously, Disney is going to be celebrating the Mickey Mouse birthday coming up a little bit later on this year. In celebration, Disney has revealed the Mickey Mouse official birthday portrait. The portrait is titled "Spreading Happiness Around the World." Was created by legendary Disney animator Mark Henn. He's worked on such films as The Little Mermaid, Lion King, and Mulan. Some small movies there, especially The Lion King. Maybe you've heard
just
those.
A couple.
Yeah, exactly. Henn said it was one of his great honors of his career to be asked to paint the 90th birthday portrait. He was greatly inspired by John Hench. I wanted to capture some of the same style and sense of youth that John achieved in his portraits, Henn said. The portrait will first appear on the fall 2018 cover of Disney 23, which is a quarterly publication sent to gold members of the Disney Fan Club D23. And in celebration of that, later on in the year, all Disney parks, also Disney Store, are going to have immense Mickey Mouse birthday celebration merchandise that you can pick up. And, like they do for most celebrations, it's going to last 17 years. So expect your... Be like, Mommy, I thought Mickey Mouse had a birthday. Yeah, well, it's like, like the Simpsons. They've been the same age for like 30 years. So there you go. So that's your Disney news. Of course, if there's anything that you see, again, hit us up, Facebook, Twitter, and email us as well. If anything that we may have omitted, since there is some other news out there, but we'll probably address that on another episode for another time, i.e. Guardians of the Galaxy director fired. So that's another topic for another show. But today we are talking about Disney's birthday. Now, Disneyland just had their birthday again, 63 years. Guys, I don't think I would be where I am today as far as just being still a kid at heart at age 40. I think without Disney. Vicky, I want to start with you. Do you still feel like a kid at heart with Disney?
I do, actually. And every time I walk into there, it's like I was, well, I can't say when I first went, because the first time I went, I was a year old at Disney World when it opened. But I walk into Disneyland, I feel like I'm a kid. If I could still skip, I'd be skipping along. But my boys will tell you, I'm in my scooter, and I'm just kind of swaying along with the music and just thinking, I never want to leave.
You're probably running people over to get onto your first attraction.
Don't tell them that.
No, Vicky, we have surveillance. Can you explain this? No. Trish,
there was a little bit of blood to get.
I know. Trish, what about you?
Oh, I always feel like a kid when I go there. I was 3 months old the first time I went, and I've been going ever since, and I always want to go, always want to be there. And there's just no other place like it. And there's something very special about Disneyland versus Disney World. It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
We'll say, oh, it's just Disney, but no.
No.
Disneyland is very special. It's the one park where Walt actually walked. And I can feel his presence there. I don't know about anybody else, but
yes,
it's a distinct difference. Like when I went to Disney World, it was like, yeah, it's kind of the same, but it doesn't have that same feel to it.
It's a big difference. It's an absolute big difference. And you're absolutely right. There is a huge difference. I haven't been to Disney World. I have been to Disney Springs in Florida a couple years ago. But even that just didn't, it felt like Disney, but it wasn't like Disney, if that makes sense. Garrett, what about you?
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard not to feel like a child when you're walking in, even from just like that walking in from where the buses drop people off. Like, you can hear the music, and then, you know, you get in and you're on Main Street, and you just hear all the old-timey music and smell all the smells, and it's hard not to just let everything just adult and problematic in life go at the door and just be like, I'm in this cool place where like nothing can get me, you know. And whether I'm with friends and family, or even occasionally sometimes I'll go alone if I'm in the Los Angeles area and I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna go alone. That's sometimes even better, and I can act even more like a kid because I can have like Tigger tails for every meal, and you know, eat way more calories than I need to be eating. So it's always such a magical feeling when I go there.
Well, and of course, when you're on vacation, you don't ever look at your calorie content, Garrett. You should know this by now. So,
well, calories don't exist in Disneyland. That's the
I
thing.
know. No, I know. I totally understand. So I think as we kind of get that warm feeling, I've got the Disneyland Esperanto music playing in the background. I kind of want to start kind of from the beginning. You know, July 17th, 1955. I mean, that's one of those dates in Americana, Vicky, that you're going to be like, you know, okay, well, some things in pop culture, you have your love affair, you know, you have your first airplane ride, you have your first car. You know, certain dates that happen. And I mean, for me, Disneyland's one of those dates that I know. Like, someone says, hey, when did Disneyland open? You say July 17, 1955. Trish will tell you Trish will be able to tell you the temperature in the air, what the weather forecast was. I mean, God bless her. I love her to death. But I mean, you know, it's just something that you just think it's Americana.
Yes, it is. It's one of those things that, even though nothing that's Americana is real, it's all a fiction, because, you know, Mom and Apple Pie. Well, Mom and Apple Pie is not always the greatest thing. But Disneyland, even though on day one they had so many things go wrong, it almost is the epitome of the American spirit. A lot of crap can happen, but it doesn't matter, because it can still be magical. It still can be fantastic. Because if you had asked anyone on that first day, you think you're going to be around all these years, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But it was. And I think it's because it was where Walt walked. It was almost as if Walt Disney willed it to exist, and despite the problems, willed it to be the magical place that all of us adore.
Exactly. So, you know, we look back on it. You know, Walt got his concept of Disneyland after visiting various amusement parks with his daughters in the 30s and 40s. He initially envisioned building a tourist attraction adjacent to his studios in Burbank. A lot of people think, well, it's always been in Anaheim. Well, not necessarily. It's actually started in Burbank to entertain fans who wish to visit. However, he soon realized that the proposed site was going to be way too small. So imagine, if you can only imagine just this park space, or the limited park space in Anaheim, just only imagine in Burbank when everything was even smaller than what his envision was. So he hired a consultant to help him determine an appropriate site for his project. Disney bought a 160-acre site near Anaheim in 1953. Construction began in 54, and with the park was unveiled during a special televised press event on what channel, Trish?
ABC.
Yay, see, I told you she knows. ABC Television Network, again on July 17th.
That's because she's special.
Well, apparently she had a homework assignment, know everything about Disneyland, and she aced it. So there you go. So, you know, this Burbank Studios, that's the thing that kind of fascinates me, Garrett. I mean, you know, I was just mentioning a moment ago that Disney, you know, originally the thought was going to be Burbank. But growing up in Southern California, that part of the Southern California was always crowded. I can only imagine what it was like back in the 50s. It wasn't as crowded as it is now, but still crowded. But obviously his vision was to not just be something small. He wanted it to be grand. He wanted it to be big.
Right, and I mean, have you ever been to the Walt Disney Studios?
I have.
I think it's still in Burbank to this day, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's not a small chunk of land, but to share that with an animation studio and a park and all this stuff, yeah, you wouldn't be fitting any Star Wars land in there, you know?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So, obviously, it wasn't necessarily just a simple, okay, we're going to build Disneyland. It's going to be this great park. It's going to be fantastic. Well, it was, but it didn't start out that way. Difficulties in obtaining funding. Apparently need a little bit of money to build these kind of things. But it prompted Disney to investigate new methods of fundraising. And he decided to create a show named Disneyland. It was broadcast on then-fledgling ABC. In return, the network agreed to help finance the park. For the first 5 years of operation, Disney was owned by Disneyland Incorporated, which was jointly owned by the Walt Disney Productions, Walt Disney, Western Publishing, and ABC. So, you know, Trish, I mean, this wasn't necessarily something, I mean, Walt wanted this, but it wasn't easy.
Absolutely not. He mortgaged everything that he could, and they had just enough money to buy the land that it was going to be on, and enough money to actually build it. They couldn't afford to buy any of the land around it, and that's why there's all those motels and shops and stuff all around the park, because they realized very quickly that that land was going to be very valuable, and so no one would sell it.
Absolutely.
To Disney once they could do it.
Absolutely. So part of the arrangement, Disney rented out many of the shops on Main Street USA to outside companies. By 1960, Walt Disney Productions bought out all the other shares, a partnership which would eventually lead to the Walt Disney Corporation's acquisition of ABC in the mid-1990s. So obviously there was that partnership that's been around for a very, very long time with Disney and ABC, and Walt Disney Corporation ultimately did purchase ABC themselves. In 1952, the proposed project had been called Disneylandia, but Disney followed ABC's advice and changed it to Disneyland 2 years later, when evacuation of the site began. Construction began on July 16, 1954, at cost of $17 million to complete. So it was literally 366 days, Vicky, that this thing was built. The park was
wild?
open. Yeah.
I mean, we can't do anything that fast these days.
Well, I mean, it took our little road down in South Reno, 40 or 50 years to be built. I mean,
exactly.
That's a whole freaking amusement park. The park was open 1 year and 1 day later, as we mentioned. U.S. Route 101, which is now known as I-5, was under construction at the same time just north of the site. In preparation for the traffic Disneyland was expected to bring in, 2 more lanes were added to the freeway before the park was finished. So, Vicky, Disney not only got a park built, but he actually got a freeway to be extended.
Yeah, who could get that done today?
Well, it takes an act of Congress, and we know how that goes. So, Disneyland was dedicated at an international press preview held event on Sunday, July 17, 1955, which was only open to invited guests and the media. About 28,000 people attended the event. Only about half of those were actual invitees. The rest having purchased counterfeit tickets or even sneaked into the park by climbing over the fence. Obviously now it is extremely difficult to sneak into the park because you will be sentenced to 25 years in jail. So, the following day, it opened to the public, featuring 20 attractions. The special Sunday event, including the dedication, were televised nationwide, anchored by 3 of Walt Disney friends from Hollywood. Do you guys want to take a guess on who those 3 people are?
Art Linkletter.
That's
Ronald
one.
Reagan.
Yep.
And Cummings. What's his first name?
Bob Cummings.
Bob Cummings. Thank you.
That's right. So, Walt had those 3 gentlemen. One was a future president. ABC broadcast the event live, during which many guests tripped over the television camera cables. In Frontierland, a camera caught Cummings kissing a dancer. So scandalous there. When Disney started to read the plaque for Tomorrowland, he read partway, then stopped when a technician off camera said something to him. And after realizing he was on air, he said, "I thought I got a signal," and began a dedication from the start. At one point, while in Fantasyland, Linklater tried to give coverage to Cummings, who was on the pirate ship. He was not ready and tried to give the coverage back to Linklater, who had lost his microphone. Cummings did a play-by-play of him trying to find in front of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So not just the fact that Disneyland had some issues, but apparently the television crew and the hosts were probably drunk. I mean, that's my guess. I mean, Garrett, this was.
It was 1955 after all.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett, this was kind of interesting. I mean, Cummings making out with one of the dancers, Disney thought, oh, I didn't know I was ready. I mean, this was just kind of a
I talked
cluster.
to my mother about that incident because it's actually one of Bob Cummings' shticks. Every time that was a thing of his, where they would cut to him on a show that he was on or his show, and he would be kissing a girl. So my mom has always said that was actually a setup, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett,
maybe he just really was that way.
Yeah. Go ahead, Garrett.
No, it sounds like that shtick has aged really well. But, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how hard it must have been to coordinate that many people with that many new stuff. It makes me wonder how long they had to really search out the park and explore this stuff before they were actually on the air and doing all this stuff. I couldn't even imagine.
Could you imagine all the cables that must have been running everywhere? All the cords?
I can only imagine. I mean, that's insane. So, traffic was delayed on the 2-lane Harbor Boulevard for,
Wow,
I mean, it was 2 lanes, Harbor Boulevard. I'm going to say that one more time. Traffic was delayed on the 2-lane Harbor Boulevard. If you've been on that road,
since 1955.
Yeah, and traffic's been back up since.
So 4 or 6 lanes, I forget.
I think it's
sounds about right.
4 each way or something like that. Yeah, famous figures who were scheduled to show up every 2 hours all at once. The temperature was an unusual high of 101 degrees, and because of a local plumber strike that was going on, Disney was given a choice of having working drinking fountains or running toilets. He chose the latter, leaving many drinking fountains dry. So this generated negative publicity since Pepsi sponsored the park's opening. Disappointing guests believed the inoperable fountains were a cynical way to sell soda, while other vendors ran out of food. The asphalt that had been poured that morning was soft enough to let women's high heel shoes sink into it. Some parents threw their children over the crowd's shoulder to get them onto rides, such as King Arthur's Carousel. In later years, Disney and his 1955 executives referred to July 17th, 1955 as Black Sunday. So, yeah, plumber strike, hot temperatures. I mean, this was literally something where Walt's just probably thinking, Vicky, what the hell did I do? What am I doing?
I'm impressed that he opened the doors the next day.
I would.
I think a normal person would have said, "Oh, screw this."
So I'm thinking he probably built the firehouse, the apartment up in the firehouse, not because he wanted to be a part of it, but because he was probably hungover with all the stuff that he was just dealing with because he didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I mean,
one of the D23 events I went to with the Mouseketeers, they were there on opening day, and one of them was talking about being up in that apartment on the above the firehouse with Walt, and there's this little deck area right outside the apartment that overlooks the town square, and she saw him standing up there, and he was watching all these people coming in and everything going on, and he was crying because he was so happy that so many people were there. He was, and she says she never forgot that.
Well, and generally, for any kind of a business owner, the first day is always going to be the worst. And I'm sure Walt probably knew that this was going to be something that was, okay, it's first day, let's get the crap out of the way. Because the very next day, there was a line as far as early as 2 a.m. to get into Disneyland. So obviously they already had a bounce back. 2 a.m. The first person to buy a ticket and enter the park was David McPherson with ticket number 2. Roy Disney arranged to purchase ticket number 1 from Curtis Lineberry, the manager of admissions. However, an official picture of Walt Disney and 2 children, Christine Vess Watkins, who's age 5, and Michael Schwartner, age 7, inaccurately identifies them as the first 2 guests of Disneyland. However, all 3 of those people received lifetime passes to Disneyland that day. And
lucky,
so jealous.
And then with the fact that McPherson was number 2, he technically should have been number 1, received lifetime passes to any Disney-owned theme park in the world. So I'm going to send an email to David right now. Am I your offspring? That would be fantastic. Approximately 50,000 guests attended to Monday opening day. which as of now would be a kind of a slow day at Disneyland. But,
Right.
50,000 guests attended the park. So July 17th was considered a preview with Walt, but July 18th, the official opening day. But we all think of it as July 17th because people were in there and they had the television show. So, I mean, wouldn't you guys want a lifetime pass to be the first people to be known as the very first people to ever be in Disney?
Yes.
I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm a little too enthusiastic.
I can tell that. I can tell that. This portion of Vicky's energy brought to you by Red Bull. So
Just Mountain Dew, honey.
I know, Mountain Dew. Now, Disney obviously so, Disney didn't have a whole lot of attractions to start out. Very, very basic rides. There was the A tickets, the B tickets, the C tickets, the EDT tickets, and the E tickets. Garrett, I mean, if you look at the history of Disneyland, and we're talking in the past, we'll get into the more current stuff here in just a little bit, but the past stuff, what would be something that you would want to ride back on opening day?
Well, just knowing that, like, nobody had seen anything like Disneyland up to this point. Like, it was all just gross, broken down, like amusement parks that people were used to. So I'd say you go into a place like Disneyland and you're like, even something like Dumbo, you're just like, this is a marvel. I've never seen anything like this. I want to ride it 20 times. I would probably say, though, personally, that a ride like the Jungle Cruise would have been really special to go on that first day, to see essentially what equated to people in the 1950s as the most realistic animals they've ever seen outside of Africa. That would have been pretty neat to me.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, no one thought of even going to like a safari or like a cruise of some kind like that. And that kind of goes into something I wanted to get into with Vicky. Disney was one of those pioneers that invented a lot of things, but one of the things that still holds true even to this day is the animatronics.
Yes. He truly was a pioneer in that field. And it's not like Disney or even his company invented the concept, but he took what he saw on much smaller scales in other places and said, I love this. And he recognized how that could assist with the whole immersion. That is one thing I think that Disney probably pioneered, was the true immersion. When you walk into Disneyland, when you walk into any ride, you feel like you're there. It's almost like the other rides aren't there, the other things aren't there. You are in Indiana Jones. You are on a safari, even though we know it's just a papier-mâché snake.
Or the redhead on Pirates of the Caribbean. But
yes.
I mean, and that's kind of what brought me onto this song. Yeah, I mean, Trish, I mean, the animatronics were fantastic. The smells. I mean, you when you go into a Disney park, you can just smell the attractions. Can't you just smell those?
Yes. They would do so well if they would create a line of candles and home fragrances that smell like the parks. I know there's companies out there that make Disney smells, but to have like the official ones.
I have a Disney water candle right on the table right next to me, and let me tell you, it smells more like a grandma than it does Disney water. But they tried. They tried.
Yeah.
That would be.
I've found very few that have actually got the smell right. Because the Disney water, that's one of my favorites. And you just had to say that. I knew exactly what you were talking about, and I could even smell it in my head. And
I would love to have the because I mean, like, I'm trying to think. So like on Pirates, they have like a pirate smell. I mean, it just something. There's just a smell. It's like pirate
it's the water.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I hope they change that. No, I mean, it's just like when you're going through different parts, and I know how they do it. I mean, if anyone who doesn't know, they pump smells into fountains, and then they release them. I mean, it's. This
is gonna sound really bad, but I miss the smell of how the train used to smell when it was running on regular oil before they switched to soybean oil to be more green.
I know.
It doesn't smell the same. It's not killing enough brain cells when you go through the tunnel.
That's what Autopia is for.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's
Just
true.
stand above Autopia, and yeah, you're...
Everyone at school was like smelling like the whiteout, and Trish was like, I'm just going to smell the oil from the like, Anyway, so of course, churros, you can't, if you walk by and you smell the churros, you're like, oh, okay. You like your little
Disney popcorn.
Oh my god.
Disney popcorn, which, by the way, I am a little gluten sensitive. That is one of the best snacks to have if you're gluten sensitive at Disney parks, is the popcorn. It is phenomenal. Okay, so I'm hungry. Anyway, so now we're so Vicky, Trish, I'll go to you, Trish, and I'll go to Vicky. So, what would be the ride that you would want to ride from July 17th, 1955? It has to be an opening day ride.
Opening day ride. Peter Pan.
And why Peter Pan?
Because Peter Pan's awesome.
Okay, well, I know that, but I know. It's freaking awesome.
To me, it's the opening day ride that has stood the test of time the best, I think. It's, magical. It's... Everyone wants to ride. That's why the line's always super long.
I know, and still is to this day. Which it sounds like, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but it sounds like they're finally going to Fast Pass. Have you guys heard about that?
No.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah,
they actually started it when we were there in January.
Okay, so they finally have Fast Pass. I think that's. Vicky, do you think that's a good idea to have Fast Pass at Peter Pan?
Yes, because unless they completely rebuild the building and get rid of another ride, they cannot have a line long enough for people to be able to get in and out. And as someone who is disabled, I will say their disabled door is the tiniest little door I've ever had to get through in my life.
Vicky's the only one that knows how to slam a revolving door. I've seen it firsthand. Besides her and Chuck Norris. So, Vicky, what about you? What would be your opening day ride?
Oh, it's a tough one because I probably actually would go with the Jungle Cruise because I was a huge fan, still am, of Humphrey Bogart. And one of his inspirations was The African Queen, which is a movie I adore. And I don't know, I just found it so magical, even though I knew the animals weren't real. I have always loved that ride, and I love the inappropriate jokes by some of the skippers, especially at night,
Right.
Well, Vicky, it would have been interesting to ride that one opening day. You're right, because actually one opening day, they weren't making jokes.
Mm-hmm.
When the ride first opened, it was all
right.
Yeah, that came in later.
That came later.
That's right, I forgot about that.
It was silly. So it would have been interesting to see how they were trying to pull it off. It would be interesting.
So
I like the way it is now much better.
Oh yeah. So obviously now we're looking at attendance. That first year they had about 1 million visitors in a amusement park in 1955.
That's crazy.
Speculation.
They had way more than that because they got their 1 millionth guest not even 3 months after it opened.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't it 17 million in the first year?
Oh, because I'm looking at it here according to Disney Parks attendance figures, and it says attendance. Well, it says 1, so it says it in a million. So it doesn't say like 1.7, but it's between 1 and 2. We'll say 1 and 2. We'll say 1 and 2 is a fair number,
but it's way more than that.
I think it is way more than that too. I think this website's lying, but that's fine. So
they don't want to admit how popular it was.
They still don't.
Conspiracy.
They're not admitting the attendance now because of the fact that the attendance is struggling.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a dip between 2015 and 2016, according to the statistics, but overall it's still pretty high.
It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, literally 5 minutes into the park opening. All right, guys, we're full to capacity. You're gonna have to try back tomorrow. So, oh my God, wouldn't that suck if you spend your whole life savings and all of a sudden you're like, oh well, I guess we're just gonna have to chance it and get up at like 6:30 in the morning to go here. So
don't go next summer.
Oh yeah,
but that is the dynamic pricing for as much as it's a pain in the ass, whether it's the annual passes, the day passes, or anything else. Some of the things they're doing with their pricing does appear to be working because they had less sellout days in the last 12 months than they did the previous 5 years.
Well, and they got to do it because, I mean, Disney's got that thing coming up next year, the little attraction called
that
Star.
little place?
That little land,
Yeah,
Star
nobody's
Wars
gonna go to
Galaxy
that
Edge.
one.
Well, I think people are going to wait for our official review of Galaxy Edge before they start showing up. That's my guess. I think it's going to be zero
nobody's gonna show up
attendance.
opening
Yeah,
night.
no one's going to show up. They're going to say, you know, we're going to listen to the DisneyVerse podcast official review before everyone shows up. That's what we do here at the DisneyVerse podcast. We give our honest reviews, and then that's what happened to Pixar Pier. No one was there, and then we said something. Now it's exploded. So anyway, what are you going to say, Trish?
What they should do, Disney should fly us all down there to go to Galaxy's Edge first, so we can try it all out and give our honest review.
I mean, if we have to.
Amen.
Yeah.
Bob Iger.
I'll take it.
Bob Iger, email DisneyVersePodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. We'll do it. I'll take the hit. I'll do it for the team.
You're such a team player. Good Lord. Oh boy. Anyway, so Disney's always had the belief that the park is never done. It is always being expanded. It's always being worked on. Trish, I know that you've been heavily about that. Garrett, do you like how Disney continues to revolutionize the park, how they try to build things up more? Do you think they kind of go overboard with some of their attractions or their construction, I should say?
I think that it's phenomenal the way they've been able to keep up with things, you know, even if it's just a facelift like what they've done for Alice or any of those rides where they add like the projections or things like that. Even just simple stuff like that goes a long way. And I like that even with all their parks across the world, I feel like, aside from maybe Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, Disneyland and California Adventure remains the most worked on park of any of the parks. And for me, with as much as I like to go, which is once every year or two still, it always gives me something new to be excited about. Not that I'm not excited to go anyways, but if I can have something new to see every time I go there, I mean, that's just more reason to show up, you know? So...
And that's one thing that I know we talked about on our last episode about Disney cruises. I mean, that's something, I mean, you know, not even 15 years ago. I don't know when Disney cruises started. Someone, if you guys know, help me out.
Mid-90s.
Mid-90s. Okay, so before mid-90s, no one ever thought about going on a Disney cruise, let alone having a Disney cruise. Now it's like the premier destination for families on cruises. That is like their goal, is to go on a Disney cruise. Even some, you know I would love to go. I would love to go on with you guys. I think that would be awesome to go on a Disney cruise. I think it would be fantastic. Bob Iger, you can send us there too.
Yeah, we'll take them.
We'll take it.
I'll take you guys.
We're not really greedy. We just really love Disney. Okay, but yeah, I mean, you know, Disney to me, it's just simply something that you know, people save up. You know, their pay for a year. I know I did that for a long, long time. Like, we wouldn't be able to go to Disneyland unless we saved a lot of money for it. Mm-hmm. And Vicky, I mean, I know you guys go down there. Seems like every weekend. I don't know how you guys can afford that.
No,
you go on your private
like
helicopter. I know.
We go a couple times a year, and actually, I was just talking with some of my coworkers about it today. That with the price changing and Galaxy's Edge opening, I may actually not renew my pass next year, or I may not renew it in 2020 because I don't know if I can pull it off.
Well, and that's something, you know, it's one of those things you have to look at.
I may have to get a third job.
Worth it.
Yeah, I'd be like, why do you want to work here?
That's why
Disneyland?
I have my second job, is to pay for my Disneyland trips. You do know that, right?
But you know another thing too, Garrett, is I've seen people like there's some I look at YouTube. I watch YouTube a lot, and one of the things I watch is people who go down to Disneyland all the time. There's a YouTube channel called Fresh Baked Disney. They go down there every weekend. There's another one named Justin Scard. He's fantastic as well. They give a lot of detail in regards to their videos and their history and things like that. Justin's more of, you know, he does Disney, but he does some other things as well too. But I mean, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Garrett, I think you would be the type that if you lived down there, you'd be like, you guys just want to go have dinner at Disneyland for the night, we go down and eat dinner for 2 hours and then we head home.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I have dreams of getting out to LA eventually anyways. I'm in the music business, but I've always said to, like, everybody, I'm just like, I feel like I would get an annual pass before I would find a place to live if I were ever moving down there. And yeah, I would probably literally go a couple times a week just in the morning for a couple hours before I get on with my day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, my line of work, it would have to be like right after work, but yeah, I would be there almost every day. Maybe riding a ride or two, or maybe just going there to watch a fireworks show or a parade and then just go home. That's what I would do. And especially if you know something that's going on that's going to be really, really crazy, okay, you may want to avoid that. But hey, let's go out Disney California. Let's check out, see what's going on over there. There's always something to do now. There's a lot of discussion now about expanding Disney California's hours to 10 p.m., maybe even as late as midnight on event days. Halloween's one of those things where it's going to be open till midnight, but they're talking about maybe expanding that when Galaxy's Edge opens up next year. They might extend those hours to midnight. Trish, would you ever go to Disneyland every day just to eat dinner and go home?
Oh, absolutely.
Can I go with you?
That's a silly question.
I know. Can I go with you?
I know. What a crazy idea.
I'll tell you what. We'll go to Blue Bayou. Okay, we'll go to Blue Bayou. We'll get some of the delicious food there, and then we'll just ride Pirates of the Caribbean and leave.
Blue Bayou every once in a while. A little expensive to do every day.
Well, if I'm not, I'm not buying. You are, so I don't. It's not.
Well, that's how it goes.
That's how it's going to go. And then you can buy me a churro for dessert. Anyway, so...
I see. Is this what's going to happen in February?
We'll talk about that when we're down there, okay? But all I know is I won't be bringing money. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. By the way,
you'd be very lonely sitting in downtown Disney.
I know. I'm gonna be sitting in downtown Disney like, hey, there's all this construction going on. Where's Trisha? Oh, she's riding Matterhorn third time in the last hour. Okay, that's cool.
Well, damn straight.
Damn straight. So yeah, I mean that's just the love of Disney. I mean that's just the love of Disney that we would just spend 2 hours just to go have dinner there and then leave. To deal with the parking, to deal with all that. To us, it's still the greatest place on earth. I mean, I think you guys all agree with me on that.
You know what, Garrett? Garrett has been to Club 33.
Yes, I have.
All right, Garrett.
Before and after.
Okay, you have to get us in.
All right, so let's change.
That is harder to do. But
so let's. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm trying to look for some other things to talk about that relates to Disneyland, and I think Club 33 would be something that we haven't really talked about on this show. So, Garrett, tell us about Club 33 and make us miserable with our daily lives.
Well, it depends on whether you want to hear about Club 33 before the renovation or how it is now.
You know what? If you have both, well, I'd say I would say if you know both, let's get into both. So let's talk about first before renovation.
Yeah, before renovation, it was that little Club 33 door on in New Orleans Square, right? That go away green ugly looking door. And you'd go inside of there, and it'd be this really cramped little space, kind of dark, red walls. You'd go up this spiral staircase, and they'd get you set up in the restaurant right there. And you could take one of two ways. One was the restaurant. The other was the butterfly collection room. I don't even know how you say that. But there was like a bug room with like the vulture in the corner and everything like that. Nothing really going on in there. Just a lot of cool stuff. I think that was all... Walt Disney's wife's collection of things and bugs and stuff in there, so that was kind of neat to look at. But the restaurant was really nice. I think at that point it was $70 for your meal, and that was whether you got a water or whether you got an entire meal. It was at least $70 to enjoy yourself there. A little bit older feeling in the restaurant. It felt a little bit outdated, so I'm kind of glad they did the renovation, although I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the fee beat, as far as within Disneyland itself goes, there's just everything's so fancy, and I remember from the older version of it, just everything was so extravagant. With the new version, they literally had those things like on movies where they had like the dome over the plate and they'd lift it up and there would be your meal. So just an extraordinary experience. You can hang out there as long as you want afterwards and go out on the balconies, be on the second floor above New Orleans Square, see things from a different perspective up there, kind of look down on the people,
the little people,
on the plebes in Disneyland, and just kind of hang out. With the new version though, what's really kind of cool. Actually, Trish and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago. One of the things that's not really so cool is they got rid of the Court of Angels to make it the entry plaza for Club 33. And it's literally just a place now where you go in through the doors, you enter into the Court of Angels, and they just say, wait here for somebody to get you. That's what they've turned the Court of Angels into, is a waiting room. So somebody comes to get you, and you go up many a stair, and you go into like a little room, like a little entry room. One way is the restaurant, same restaurant as was before, and then another way takes you into the lounge. Now the restaurant still is, in my opinion, a little bit outdated. To be quite frank about that. Great experience being in Club 33, but a little outdated on that restaurant. But the lounge is where things get special, because that place is like a Haunted Mansion themed bar. And
cool.
Yeah, and just
nice.
Oh man, and you go in there and it's just it's phenomenal. I mean, the theming, the imagination that went into every little detail of that place. One of my favorite details is on one of the walls they have this painting of 4 ghosts and then instruments strewn throughout the bar. And there's always a piano playing itself in the back of the room. But then occasionally, one of the ghosts in the painting will leave the painting. And he won't be in the painting anymore. And instead, that ghost will go to an instrument within the room and start playing that instrument to accompany the piano in the back. And then once the part is done, the ghost will disappear from... And it's like a hologram ghost playing this instrument. And then once the part is over, the ghost will disappear from the instrument and go back to the painting. And I just thought, they did that for this special little club that nobody's going to see. Like, how special is that? So just a ton of phenomenal little details in the place. Club 33 is really special if you're ever able to go. I've only been once since they renovated, but I am desperately looking for a way back in. So...
Now, how did you get? I mean, how did you get in before? Can you tell us, or is that like a hidden secret?
No, it's not a secret or anything. My dad does this ABBA tribute show, like the band Dancing Queen ABBA.
Yep.
And they were booked.
He's not by chance part of Abracadabra, is he?
That's my dad.
Oh my God! I work with Route 66.
Oh, how funny! What a small town. Yeah, my dad is Gary Raffinelli.
Oh my God, yes.
So, anyways, so he had a show booked down in Brea, California, neighbor to Anaheim, and the guy who booked him for the show, the guy who was putting on the show, was a member of Club 33. So we were like, hey, well, we're here. Do you think maybe we could like get in? And he was like, yeah, I'll get you in. No worries, just show up at this day at this time and you'll get in. And so that was kind of our way in there.
So you're saying there's a chance? Wow.
Yeah, always.
I think Vicky.
It's not about what you know; it's about who you know.
I think Vicky is about ready to just.
I love it.
Vicky's about ready to just oh my God, she's getting all excited and everything like that.
Okay, calm down, Vicky. Calm down. Okay. Don't want them to know how excited you are.
If Vicky goes to a concert, she'd be like, "Go and throw my underwear out there." No, I was kidding. Anyways.
I do not do that anymore. I'm way too old.
Anymore? Wait, anymore? Whoa. Jeez.
Hey, I've been a mom for 25 years. Let's just say it's been a very long time for me.
Well, that's okay. Anyway, so now, Garrett, I guess my burning question I have is when you guys looked over the railing up on the second floor, did you guys throw pennies at the little people and say, "Ha ha"? That's what I totally would do that. No, actually, I won't really do that. But.
I mean, there's always the temptation, but I will tell you what, in all seriousness, being up there, you get this really special feel, and it's almost like you don't want to go back inside. You want to stay out there and like keep this really cool view, even though all the coolness is back in the building itself.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're just like, when am I ever going to get this view again? I want to stay out here for like an hour, you know? So, which is exactly kind of what I did. So
that's why I go up. That's why I go up the. That's why I go up the treehouse, because it's not because I like climbing 800 stairs up and down, but it's because of the view. It's all because of the view, and it's that's exactly what it's all about for me, is the view. Yeah, I mean, Club 33 is one of those really, really hard places to get into, but if you can find a way, or if you know someone in an ABBA tribute band or something like that, then that Vicky's going to throw her underwear at. I mean, definitely, I mean, whatever you can do. I mean, Trish, what do you think about all this? Do you think maybe you need to figure out a way to get even in the Club 33?
I have come so close to getting in many times, and it's always fallen through. And it's drive me crazy because I think it's never going to happen.
So know a guy from a Fleetwood Mac tribute band. I see. Okay.
That's it. Yeah. No, I have a lot of patience, and there was like one of them is just like, oh, well, my brother's been a member since it first started, and he's best friends with Michael Brogy, and I'll talk to him. I bet he can get you in, and then I never see her again.
Oh no.
And then
it's a kiss of death.
And then another one, is like, oh yeah, I'm a member now. I've been a member for a long time, but they put so many restrictions on how many people you can let in that I only let my family go.
Right.
Yeah.
Then why even bringing it up? If you
or
don't.
I had another one where it was my brother's friend who was working for a guy that was a member, and he couldn't get a hold of him because the guy was in like, India or something. He was like somewhere way out of the country. And he was trying to get a hold of him while we were in Disneyland, And,
that might have been a little late.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
Well, I mean, we were there for many days. It was trying to get it for one of the days we were there, but
right.
Yeah. So frustration.
I know. So yeah, I mean, we just got to get to know the ABBA cover people. I mean, that's what we got to get to know. If we can get to know those people, then we're in business. We just can't hang around with people from Fleetwood Mac or any of those type of bands. So, so I mean, I talked a little earlier about how Disneyland is not really done, and it never will be done. So we look at the past, we look to the future. We have obviously Star Wars Galaxy Edge coming out next year sometime. You have D23, which tickets go on sale, I believe, in August. I want to say August, September, something like that. They haven't the announcement yet, but it's usually about a year in advance. Those tickets go on sale. And then we also have Paradise Pier. Pixar Pier just opened up. We have obviously the transformation of the Twilight Zone ride to the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction. We also have Bugs Land going away. It's going to be that Marvel. It's going to be more Marvel, things like that. It's a ever evolving park, and it's always going to be evolving. That's why if you go to Disneyland or Disney World or any other park you go to that's not Disney related, just enjoy the attractions you can, because you never know when those attractions are going to be gone. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I love the People Mover, and when I saw that we're doing Disney World in December and I saw the People Mover was there, I've called that to be the first ride we ride on. I want to ride the People Mover. I have not ridden that thing since I was 16 years old, so I'm really, really excited about going on that ride. Before we wrap things up, I mean, what are you guys looking forward to the future? Garrett, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, man. What a hard question.
I know.
I mean, the easy answer is always, Star Wars Land. Marvel, I'm particularly excited for having a presence there in the park, because I've been waiting, with the whole Universal Studios rules that they can't have too much going on the East Coast. I'm glad they at least are making something happen on the West Coast and even overseas. But there's one ride that I saw that they were trying to get a patent for, which has like a swinging type mechanism in it, and a lot of people, the rumor mill is saying that that's going to be Spider-Man related, who is my favorite superhero of all time. So if that were to be a thing, even though it's just a rumor at this point, they haven't made an announcement about it, I would be very excited to see something like that come around. But either way, I think Marvel in the parks is very exciting. I think Star Wars is going to be cool, but I'm more scared of the idea, the crowds that's going to bring in than anything else. But I mean, just the way that they maintain the parks, there's always something to look forward to.
No doubt about that. Vicky, what about you?
Oh, that's a tough one for me. I'm just so excited to see what they're going to do, looking at some of the concept pictures of both the Marvel and especially Star Wars. But I kind of don't want to go near it for about 12 months.
I'm going to be there in 12 days. I mean, not 12 months. Trish, what about you?
Well, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Star Wars Land, but I do plan on waiting, like Vicky said, about a year before I venture into that because, everything breaks when they first open, and wouldn't it suck to go there and every time you went to try to ride the Millennium Falcon ride, it was broken?
Oh!
Especially with the integration that they're trying to do with everything and like making everything tell one story for each individual guest. Like that's going to be a lot of moving pieces that they're going to have to figure out. So.
I hope that if it does go down, I hope they blame it on the hyperdrive. That would be freaking awesome if they do that. I mean, that just makes sense. Oh, we're having problems with the hyperdrive again. Hang tight, guys. We'll be right back with you.
We can all just blame J.J. Abrams, I think.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams. That's all his fault. So absolutely. Yeah.
But I was reading one book, one Disney, I guess you can call it a fantasy novel type that centers around Disney, and at one point in the book, it jumps to the future. And in Disneyland, in the Main Street Cinema was actually the most popular place in the park. And I'm like, why? It turns out that they turned it into a virtual reality theater.
Sweet.
Where you can go in. And, of course, the technology is just, so advanced that it's like you're really there. But you can go in there and experience any Disney attraction from the past.
Okay.
And that's something that I can see that happening sooner rather than later, just with the way the technology is. Disney is definitely looking at things VR pretty soon. So I really wouldn't be surprised if that is something that happens much sooner rather than much later. I mean, it definitely is going to happen. For me, it's going to be exciting to see what they do with Downtown Disney, the hotels. They got that going on, how they're going to expand Downtown Disney. They do realize that they have to make it bigger, and they have to expand it with obviously the hotel in mind. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to do the little things, like how they're going to handle the parking situation. How are they going to make that bigger? I know they're expanding the parking garages. But I'm very interested to see how they're going to grow the park anymore before they have to maybe start tearing down some of those hotels down in the area around the park. How that's going to be, because they have to address the issue with parking or in the land, because it's getting to the point where it's getting too crowded. So that's really the biggest thing for me. Otherwise, as far as internal park, I think just keeping the heritage. I think just keeping how Disneyland's been for so many years. Yeah, they're going to get rid of some rides. We don't obviously know what those rides are going to be, but just keeping the core values of how Disneyland was there on July 17, 1955, minus the drinking water issue or the flush toilets, but or the Bob Cummings making out with some cast member there, so that's one of those things we like to do. We like to kind of take a look back on some things. Future episodes, we're actually going to tell a story about how Knott's Berry Farm almost became a Disney property. I'm actually working on that as we speak, and that will be a future episode. How Knott's Berry Farm, one of the oldest theme parks in the entire country, almost became a Disney property. It was much closer than what y'all think. So we're going to find out about that on a future episode of the DisneyVerse Podcast. Garrett, thanks for coming on here again, my friend. You're more than welcome to come on anytime you want to talk Disney or talk whatever. We love to have you on as many times as you're wanting to do it.
It was a pleasure speaking with you guys. This was a lot of fun. I can't wait to be back on next time that I'm able to.
Absolutely. Well,
Sweet.
well, thank you very much, Garrett. Thank you very much, Trish and Vicky. This is Michael saying thank you very much for taking a stroll down memory lane at the 63rd birthday of Disney. And we will talk to you next time. Again, don't forget DisneyVersePodcast@gmail.com is the email address. Facebook.com/DisneyVerse is Facebook. And Twitter, DisneyVersePod is the handle. Again, this is Michael saying so long, everybody. We will talk to you next time.